An amazing young woman who's running for the governor of South Carolina. She is a native South Carolinian. She was born in Lexington, graduated from high school there, then attended Wofford College. Graduation from Wofford, she went to work in the real world. She moved down to Jonesville, South Carolina, where she worked in a textile mill. She began her career as an inspector and quickly advanced to the senior management team. Well, you all know what happened to those textile jobs. They went overseas, and she said, well, I've got to do something else. So she gathered her savings and she enrolled in law school at the University of South Carolina. Upon graduation there, she returned to the private sector and was very successful there, and one day she got a call from Governor-elect Nikki Haley and said, I'd like for you to join my cabinet. So she thought it over and she said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you and the citizens of the state of South Carolina 4 years. And then I'm going to return to the private sector. She was one of the very first people that Governor Haley appointed to her cabinet. She became Secretary of Labor. 1 year as Secretary of Labor, she reduced the cost 25% and at the same time made the office much more responsible and efficient for the people who have to work with that department on a daily basis. And then Governor Haley said, I need you to become director of DHEC. So she took that on and went through some hearings that you wouldn't believe if you didn't go down there and listen to those senators grill her all the time. But she went through those and served 3 years at DHEC. She did some wonderful things there. And true to her word, she returned to the private sector after those 3 years at DHEC. During those 4 years in Columbia, she took on the Obama administration and successfully fought them. She also shook up Columbia because she reformed government, threw out some entrenched Democrats, and said, I'm returning money to the citizens of South Carolina. She's never run for anything, and as she likes to say, she doesn't owe anybody anything, and she doesn't owe anybody anything, and what's the other thing she always says? She can't be bought. I knew I'd forget one of these things, but she can't be bought. She is a wife, she is a mother, she is a successful businesswoman, she is very active in the community, and she is running for governor of our great state. Join me in giving Catherine Templeton another. You did. I don't know about you. I don't need to be up here because, is it off?
No,
Yep.
There's a switch.
There's a switch. I could just yell. Go for it. That would be fun. I used to be a cheerleader at Irmo High School. Is it buzzing?
Don't touch anything.
All right. I don't really need to be up here though because Margaret's already told you absolutely everything there is to say. And I was standing in the back with Senator Clymer, and I see Representative Pope here, and I see Representative Bryant here, and he said, this is a huge crowd. And I said, well, half of them are my family, so don't think much about it. My uncle and aunt are over here, and another uncle's back. Raise your hand, I'm not making it up. My whole family's from Rock Hill. Yeah. Do y'all remember what Governor Haley used to say? It's a great day in South Carolina. Yes. So when she left, do you think if she had stayed, she would have signed into law the largest tax increase in modern history? No. Or vetoed money to keep our kids safe when they get on the school buses to go to school? No, of course not. Do you think that Nikki Haley, the woman who hired me to fight labor unions after fighting them for 15 years, would have allowed our Port of South Carolina, that is responsible for 1 in 11 of our jobs statewide, you think she would have allowed them to unionize and shut us down for business? No. But that's what's happened in 1 year. Just in 1 year since she's been gone. You know, South Carolina is the most conservative state in the nation. The Republicans hold the governor's office, the House of Representatives, the Senate. We have everything. That we should be a shining example of bold conservative leadership for the entire nation to see. But instead, look what's happening. The entrenched politicians
are growing government and they're raising taxes. If we were going to do that, why not just give it back to the Democrats, right? Now, I want to thank y'all, and I want to be real clear, because the people that you are sending to Columbia are not who I'm talking about tonight. In fact, I heard that at a Senate caucus, or I should have even said Senate, a caucus of the politicians, there was a long-time politician complaining about the fact that I'm running for governor and I'm talking about corruption. And one of the newer senators looked at him and said, "She's not talking about me." So I'm not talking about anybody you send to Columbia when I talk to you tonight. You know, it wasn't that long ago that we had a governor we could be proud of. You know, Nikki Haley fought, I'm afraid to touch this. Don't do it. Fought every single day to drain the swamp in Columbia. She was a conservative with big ideas. Yet she represented our state with grace and integrity. My, how things have changed. If I thought that the current fill-in governor was going to lead South Carolina in a bold conservative revolution, I'd be his biggest cheerleader. I'd harken back to my Irma days, right? But I know he won't. And that's why I'm running for governor. Yes. You know, when you start running for office, I've never done this before. When you run for office, people want to know everything about you. So let's start with this. Somebody said, just tell them what's in your purse. Well, the first thing I did was clean my purse out. But in all fairness, what is in my purse today? So I always have Chick-fil-A coupons. That is a must. Hopefully my keys are in there or somewhere close. Today McCabe forgot her doctor's excuse, so that's still in my purse. Didn't go to school with her. And I always carry Granddaddy Monk's 38. We'll talk about why later. Really, the first thing you should know about me is I am a mother and a wife. And while I have 3 beautiful children, Khaki, Hampton, and McCabe, when I was pregnant with the twins, the doctors called us in and wanted us to run more tests because they wanted to find out if they should recommend aborting one of our twins to save the life of the other one. Well, my husband Morgan and I didn't run any more tests. Of course not. These were God's children that He had given to us to protect for as long as God would allow us. And that's why family is so important to me. In fact, you know, I wasn't kidding. I have all of these family members here today. My great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather came here, York and Chester County, in the late 1700s. In fact, my dad was named after Judge William Brawley, who fought for General Robert E. Lee and lost his arm in the Battle of Seven Pines for this state. But I want to be clear about something. My family didn't fight because we owned slaves. My family fought because the federal government was telling them how to live. We didn't need them to tell us how to live now. We don't need them to tell us how to live now. Because in South Carolina, I'm proud that if you work hard, no matter where you come from, you can achieve. You can get whatever you want to. And I know it because my father did it. I watched him. My dad didn't grow up with anything. He grew up here in Rock Hill, and his sisters and his brother all slept in chest of drawers instead of cribs because that's what they could afford. Now, they were big chest of drawers. We still have them. Right? They were comfortable for a baby, but they didn't have anything, literally. And when my parents got married, they lived in public housing because they couldn't afford to live anywhere else. But they worked. Every day they worked because they wanted my brother and I to have opportunity. And in South Carolina, because we live here, they were able to achieve amazing success and give my brother and I all the opportunities that we could possibly need. Think about it. Growing up, my father went to bed hungry, and now his daughter's running for governor. What does that say about South Carolina and this nation and my dad? That's why I'm doing this, because I want my children and their children and your grandchildren to have the opportunities that they should. I want them to grow up in a state that's so overflowing with opportunities that you can have whatever you want if you work hard, no matter where you come from. Unfortunately, today, Columbia is getting in the way of those opportunities. We are losing. We're going the wrong direction all of a sudden. But I can do something about it because I've done it before. See, when Nikki Haley asked me to join her cabinet, she didn't ask me to be a part of her team because I had a long history of fighting unions. She wanted me to come help her because I had a long history of beating unions. And that's what we did. That's what I did as your Secretary of Labor. You know, do you remember when Boeing said they were going to come to South Carolina? Bring thousands of jobs? Do you remember what happened next? The Obama administration said they weren't. The Obama administration told us what we were going to do in South Carolina. Well, many congressional hearings later, many media hits later, liberal media tore us up. And in fact, the AFL-CIO sued me individually, personally, to try and stop us. But we didn't. We showed up. We didn't back down. We fought, and we kept South Carolina jobs in South Carolina despite what the Obama administration wanted. We weren't about to let out-of-state union bosses come in and take our jobs from our people, steal from our paychecks. And if you want to hear some really colorful language that wouldn't be appropriate in front of my aunt and uncle, ask a union boss what they think of Catherine Templeton. My reputation for fighting for your right to work, for our right to work, had preceded me. And when they tried to sit us down, you know, we killed them. We got them. And we've grown the job since then. Now, no good deed goes unpunished, right? So as soon as we finished that fight, Governor Haley looked at me and I was ready to go back home. I'd done what she'd asked. You know, that I get to go home now, right? No. She gave me the state's largest agency. Have you ever heard of DHEC? Yep. It is everything that we hate about government. Big, bossy, bureaucratic, I mean, just bloated. And she asked me to go clean house. She said, we have to take care of making government smaller. So we went in, and I fired one. That should be a standing ovation. I fired one employee. We let go of 1 out of every 4 state employees in one agency. And we took $68 million from another one within 2 years. Now, the big government crowd went crazy. They lost their minds. The media called me a buzzsaw, which of course I took as a compliment. Democrats called me dangerous, and as Margaret was referring to, they held one of the longest filibusters that any of us can remember to try to stop me, to try to sit us down. But I was just getting started. Because when the Democrats in our state were hitting me, the Obama administration was hitting you. The Obama EPA and Energy Department was abusing South Carolina. Now, it'll come as no surprise to you that I'm not a big fan or wasn't a big fan of President Obama, and he probably felt the same way about me. But when I threatened his administration, the liberal New York Times was so incensed that anyone would have the nerve to challenge and hold the federal government accountable that they called it, they called it a showdown, a fierce battle. South Carolina was threatening Washington. That's exactly what I was doing. And I was proud of it. I'm proud of the 4 years that I worked for Governor Nikki Haley. We cut 25% of the bureaucrats. We went 3 for 3 with the Obama administration. We sent tens of millions of dollars back and stopped spending. And we took on the unions to save jobs here. Now, back to the gun. You can't do all that without stepping on a few toes. The corrupt establishment got so angry at me that I actually got a call from the chief of the state law enforcement division. And if any of you know him, Tommy, this is going to be a pretty good. Catherine, you need to come get a gun. Actually, he asked me to go get my concealed weapons permit. I already had a gun because Granddaddy Monk gave me one. And you can't make this up. It is a .38 snub nose special. I didn't have any problem carrying a gun, but can you imagine having to carry a gun because you have ruffled feathers at your job? And I still carry it today because I am not finished doing the right thing and ruffling feathers in Columbia. Let me tell you what I'm for. All right, everybody raise their hand. I know it's uncomfortable, but we're going to all raise our hands together so nobody will feel, if you don't raise your hand, then you'll be out. There you go. Okay. All right, now, if I say anything that you don't agree with, then you can put your hand down, but keep your hand up until that time, okay? You want to be safe?
Yeah.
You want to make a good living and keep that money?
Yep.
You want your kids and your grandkids to reach their God-given potential?
Yep.
You pretty much want to do what you want to do unless it hurts somebody else.
Yep.
Fair enough? I'm for that. You can put your hands down. When I'm your governor, you will be safe. We're going to lift up our law enforcement. And you know what we're going to do? This is revelatory. We're going to treat criminals like criminals. How about that? Our prisons are so poorly run. We have inmates rioting and jumping over the fence. And when we do keep them in, we give them cell phones and access to drugs. It's ridiculous. When I'm governor, you will keep your money. I will cut spending and slash government and reduce taxes more than any time in history. We're going to deliver, and Tommy Pope's going to help me, and so is Representative Bryant. Where's Wes Clymer? We're going to get a head nod tonight. We're going to reduce personally. We're going to cut spending. We're going to cut sweetheart deals. We're going to cut waste. We're going to cut pork, and we're going to cut your income tax to 5%. When I'm governor, the kids in this state are going to actually be educated. The point of education is so that they can support themselves when they get out of school. It's that simple. So let's let the teachers teach and the principals lead, and let's get the money to the children. Let's get out of their way. Must be a former teacher. School board member.
School board members.
That's right. Are you running again?
No, I'm up in governor's presidential cycle.
Okay, good.
Midterm.
Support these people. That's a much harder job than governor. When I'm governor, we're going to fix the roads.
Yes.
Pretty simple. We have the money. It's corruption and incompetence that's getting in our way in Columbia. When I'm governor, we're going to fight for our forgotten rural counties too. That's important. You know, corrupt politicians don't care about small towns because they can't afford a lobbyist. So what we're going to do when I'm governor is we're going to hear their voices. That means focusing on rural jobs. It means cracking down on the illegal immigrants who take those jobs. And it means giving our best and brightest the opportunity to work themselves out of bad circumstances. When I'm governor, elected officials will stop lining their pockets and start protecting ours. Let's put them on notice now. If we send you to serve and protect our money, you can't have any for yourself. It's that simple. That's the one line we need. An anti-corruption bill that says just that. Because when you go to Columbia to serve, it should be just that. It should be service. No more sweetheart deals no more sweetheart deals and kickbacks. And no more appointing your brother or your sister or your aunt or your uncle or your kids to our state boards and commissions. Columbia is filled with career politicians who get up there, and it's just so good to stay up there because they continue to grab the power and fill their coffers. But when I'm governor, we are going to finally have term limits. Go do your best. Go do your best. And when you're finished, come back and live under the laws that you've created. Now, Governor Haley had South Carolina going in the right direction, but within weeks of losing our governor, Henry McMaster signed into law the largest tax increase in modern history. He did it while also failing to fix our roads and vetoing the bus money for our children. And then he allowed the Teamsters Union to come into the port of South Carolina without a whimper from him and shut us down for business whenever they feel like it. That's 1 year. If we don't show up on June 12th and choose someone different, you're going to have that leadership for a decade. So I need you to show up and vote for the conservative outsider, please. Now, to be fair to Henry, I'm not 100% sure what we expected of someone who's been running for office for 30 years. I don't think we ever thought he was going to usher in a new conservative revolution. Henry's run for governor, lieutenant governor. I think he wanted to be in the Senate at one point, attorney general. He's been running for office since 1986. Where were your parents at that point? Were they dating in 1986? You know, it's when the Challenger exploded. I mean, to give you context, it's when Chernobyl melted down. And I don't have to tell you about another nuclear disaster that Henry failed to avoid. Instead of protecting you, Henry took $115,000 at least in campaign contributions from SCANA executives, and they took $2 billion from us. Since then, Henry has misled the public, refused to give the campaign money back, and now he supports a sweetheart deal that gives his political cronies more money and continues to take from us. We need a governor who will protect us, not them. You can tell a lot about a person by the company they keep as well. The sad truth is that when you've been in politics for 30 years, that's not great company. Y'all know about the whole ethics scandal in Colombia? Are y'all following that? You know, that's Henry's inner circle. Those are Henry's people. They've just finally been indicted for criminal conspiracy, criminal political conspiracy. They've been on Henry's payroll for decades. So when he was the attorney general and never prosecuted them, I know they took care of him, but if he knew what they were doing, he's corrupt. And if he didn't, he's incompetent. And now he's our governor. We need a strong conservative, not an establishment politician. We need bold reform, not the status quo. I was proud to serve Governor Haley, but today we have prisoners jumping the fence. It's become too politically incorrect to protect our monuments and our history. It's easier to sit on the couch and collect welfare than to take one of the 60,000 jobs available in South Carolina. And idle hands lead to an opioid epidemic that's killed more than the Vietnam War. We're failing the kids who do want to work because we're dead last in education, and the roads to get those kids to school and us to work and church and home are crumbling. You know, in South Carolina, you used to be able to afford a John boat and a weekend at the lake, a long weekend at the lake. And now people can't afford their grocery bill or their electric bill. This is not the conservative future we deserve. It's time to stand up. It's time to show up. It's time for us to start our own revolution. It's time to start calling out by name the people who are standing in the way of smaller government, of term limits, of lower taxes, of family values. Let's make it loud and clear. South Carolina is the most conservative state in the nation. We are not afraid to stand up to the liberal media. We are not afraid to stand up to the corruption and people who will hold on to power no matter what. We're going to make this campaign a fight because South Carolina is worth fighting for. I'm Catherine Templeton. I'm one of the first people Governor Haley asked to help her make it a great day in South Carolina. I need you to show up on June 12th and help us make it a great day in South Carolina again. Amen. Thank you.